So welcome, Jim.
Thank you. I feel like I do this every weekend, but thank you so much for having me here today and welcome me into Rotary. I very much appreciate it. So, where to start? Every week I entertain people, but I never really talk about myself, which is a very hard thing to do. So I called some people and I said, how do you do this? How do you talk about yourself when every week you entertain, but you never are the center of attention? One person said, well, you just be honest and start from the beginning and tell them the story. I was like, that's all right. So then I called my parents this morning. And of course, my mom goes, well, you're going to say you're from Jim and Mary Ann. And I'm like, yes, I'll start there. And she's like, well, I don't know what else to tell you. So I was like, forget it. I'm just going to wing it. But that's where it does start. My parents are Jim and Mary Ann. They've been married 56 years. And I'm the oldest of two boys. My mother was full Italian, and my dad is German-Irish. He was a Vietnam vet, or is a Vietnam vet, and he met my mother when he was on his first leave from service. They did 18-month tours at that, or 10-month tours at that time. Then they would have a month on base and a month at home. And he had asked my mom if she would wait for him. Took her up to San Luis State Park, and thought my mom was just everything. So he said, would you wait for me? She said, no. She said, no, I will not wait for you, but I'll write you letters. And over the next year or so, they wrote letters back and forth and fell in love. And on his third trip home, he asked my grandfather if he could marry my mother. And he said yes, and then she said yes, which is a good thing because I'm here now. So fast forward, I was a very shy kid, very much introverted. I did not do a lot of public things. And one night there used to be this under 21 nightclub, still there, called Rick's Place in Lancaster. And I would go there every weekend and I would sit and watch everyone dance. So one weekend I said, I'm going to get up and dance. And I got up and everyone made fun of me. I was so embarrassed. So I left, I went home, changed my wardrobe, cut my hair, did everything like I looked like Vanilla Ice. It was a bad move, but I did that. And I came back and I taught myself how to dance. And I went back and I said, I'm going to teach these guys that I can dance. And I did. And the one bouncer said, wow, that Jimmy can jam, which led to me wanting to be a disc jockey, much like Rick Bomberger, who owns Rick's Place. So I didn't know what a name I could use, and somebody said, well, why don't you just do Jimmy Jam? I'm like, well, there's already so many Jimmy Jams out there. They're like, but there's only one of you. I said, okay. So that's how I started Jimmy Jam. So I thought life was going to be all about DJing, entertaining, and that's what I was going to do. And my mother said, no, that's not what you're going to do, because you need to have benefits. I said, well, why do I need benefits? She goes, everybody needs benefits. You need to get benefits. She goes, why don't you look into banking? I said, well, I don't know anything about banking. She goes, well, just apply and see what happens. So I went to Dolphin Deposit back in 1992 and applied to be a teller. And I was a floating teller for many, many moons. And I remember I went to Catholic High. And when I left Catholic High, I thought everybody, just dressed kind of like this. I didn't wear suits and ties. We did enough of that in school. But back then in banking, gentlemen wore suit and ties. I did not. I was coming to work with a dress shirt on and pants and no tie. And my one boss, Nick Panaris, took me out to lunch. I was probably 19 years old. And Nick said, Jim, you're not dressing enough for us. You're not dressing professionally enough. I said, well, what do you mean, Nick? He goes, well, in banking, gentlemen wear suits and ties. I said, okay, so what you're saying is I have to buy clothes. He goes, no, just dress a little bit better than what you are right now. He goes, feel like a professional, you want to dress professional. I said, okay. So that night I went home and I thought about what Nick said. And from DJing, I have a tuxedo that I wore every weekend. So I wore the tuxedo to work the next day. And I said, is this professional enough for you, Nick? And from that point on, I was very well known in Dolphin Deposit. Not for the right reasons. So I spent many years in banking, going from to Sovereign Bank to Dolphin or Core States, All First, Keystone Bank, National Bank, which when Keystone was acquired, it led to M&T Bank. And that's where I learned about mortgages, and that's what led me to where I'm at now. And I've been doing that since 1989. But I never put down Jimmy Jam. So Jimmy Jam gave me my only wife. Jimmy Jam also took away the wife, but it's always been a growth for me. So from meeting my wife when I was out DJing, we had a son together who is going to be 25 this year and is probably my best friend next to my father. He grew up, I was a single dad from when he was 18 months old. So I grew up while he was growing up. Sounds hard to say that, but as you know, nobody hands you a book and says this is how you're a parent. So I made a lot of mistakes, especially being a single dad. But it happens, and life goes on, and you learn from your mistakes, and that's what I did. So here we are, fast forward, he's 25, I'll be 53, and we have a great friendship and respect for each other. In fact, this weekend, we're going to Vegas over Easter. Not the best time to go, but we're very big wrestling fans. So wrestling has the ultimate Super Bowl once a year. It's called WrestleMania, and it's held all over the country in different places. Last year it was in Philadelphia. We went there. This year it's in Vegas. Next year it's in New Orleans. So Jimmy, my son, looked at me and said, last year when we were in Philly, he goes, Dad, we're going next year. I said, no, we're not, Jimmy. I said, it's in Vegas. We're not going to Vegas. He goes, no, Dad, we're going. He goes, I'm going to get tickets. I said, Jimmy, if you get tickets, I will pay for the airfare, the hotel, the rental car, and the food. Because the tickets were like $2,300 a ticket for 2 nights. So I thought there's no way this kid's going to do this. Needless to say, back in October, he showed me a receipt for 2 tickets to WrestleMania. So I had to pony up and call a travel agent, book the hotel, the airfare, the rental car, and make sure I have the meal plans. So that's what we're doing starting Friday. But going back to Jimmy Jam, it taught me also a lot about giving to people, giving to society, and helping people out. Everyone thinks that DJing is you just show up, spin a few records, go home, you entertain, and that's it. But there's a lot more to it. I'm there 3 hours before the event starts, and I'm there 45 minutes to an hour after everyone leaves, loading up, packing up, going home. Long days, 12-hour days usually when you do a wedding. And then you get home and you're all keyed up and you can't sleep because you've been entertaining for the last 4 hours. So you kind of just sit there and watch TV, but it's 2 in the morning and nobody else is up, so you can't really do anything but watch TV. So in doing so, I learned a lot about, like I said, giving. And I did Relay for Life. I would DJ for 24 hours straight for free to raise money for cancer. I do ALS currently every year down in Delaware. A campground I used to go to, the owner died of ALS in a very short period of time, so they do a benefit once a year for him. And I spend 3 days down there DJing the whole time. So they raised last year $90,000 in a weekend. So it's a very good cause. I did a lot for veterans. I do a lot for veterans, especially the fact that my father's one. I try to DJ as many places that welcome veterans as possible. I was doing a lot here at the Elizabethtown American Legion. I do the VFWs, the Moose in E-Town, and private parties. So one year I was doing a hospice benefit. Gotta get my water. And in doing the hospice benefit, I would always recognize veterans, and I would ask them to stand up and thank them for their service. So one year, and I would do this for free. It was down at the Dirty Old Tavern, and everyone laughs at the Dirty Old Tavern. It's in Lancaster, if you know where it's at. If you know, you know. But they had a very nice banquet room, and I was loading up. And my nephew used to help me. He was 16 years old at the time. And I had a bad habit at that time. I would smoke cigarettes, but you couldn't smoke when you were DJing. So I would go out as soon as I was done and have a cigarette. And that was my thing, and let the system cool down. And I went outside, and I was talking to someone out there, and I saw somebody walk past me. And I thought that, you don't think anything of it. The next thing I know, I felt impact on my head. And I didn't know what happened. And then there's this guy in front of me, and he's punching me in the eye. And he punched me like 10 times in the head. And I still didn't know what was happening. So I ducked down, and he was beating me on the head. And then the bartender came out and said, "What are you doing to the DJ?" And he took off running. So I go back, and I'm trying to get up, and people are helping me up. And this one guy helps me up. He goes, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I think they busted my nose." He goes, "Well, let me see." And he punches me 2 more times. So I end up getting back into the Dirty Old Tavern. I fell in there. And this was March 31st, the day before April Fool's. And as you can tell, I like to play jokes, I'm sure. So as I was calling people for help, everyone thought it was an April Fool's joke. No one wanted to help me. So they took me to the hospital, and I had an orbital malfracture of the left eye socket. I now have 3 metal plates and 13 screws that will stay with me for the rest of my life, and one heck of a case of PTSD. So for years, the thing about PTSD is you never realize how much it impacts your life until it catches up with you. It starts out really, really subtle. Like, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. And then it hits you. And it hits you in different ways. Maybe somebody gets too close. Maybe you're in a room full of people and you don't feel comfortable. Maybe somebody just brushes up against you and it bothers you. You end up having anxiety, panic attacks, and anger issues and everything else, which happens. But I did quit DJing then for 3 years. And we got a camper down in Delaware, my girlfriend and I. We reside here in E-Town. It's my girlfriend, Christy, and she has 2 kids, JC and Bennett, and my son, Jimmy. So we get a camper down in Delaware, and we're going back and forth every weekend, and it was great. I wasn't DJing. I was enjoying the camper. I got a golf cart. I would cruise around, say hi to everybody, and I didn't have the anxiety. Well, then Christy wanted to buy a house. So we did. And she goes, "Well, we'll have to get rid of Delaware." And I said, "Well, that's not happening. So we can't get rid of Delaware." She goes, "Well, then you'll have to start DJing again." So I started DJing again. Now I'm back to at least every other weekend. And it always has been with me. And it's truly made me who I am. And that's humble. Because I learned a lot. Not just from the assault or the amount of time it takes or the lack of respect you sometimes get from people that are they're maybe under the influence and they think they're the DJ. But it stuck with me, and it's created me into a person that is humble, like I said. I feel like I'm blessed very much to be able to give the gift of entertainment. God gave me this gift, and I try not to forget that it comes from God. I'm very grateful that I am able to entertain. I do as much as I can for free, and you still have to make a profit doing something for a living. So, but I always had my banking job during the day, and the banking led into mortgages, like I said. So now, as a mortgage person in today's society, you have to be very proactive. If somebody's calling you for a mortgage, you have to answer that phone. Greg, you know that, don't you? If you don't answer your phone, the next person will. So my phone is on me 24/7. I have two of them. And when I'm DJing, my work phone is right there. And I'll have a realtor text me and say, hey, I need an updated pre-qualification. While I'm announcing the bride and groom, I will text them back and let them know that by 1 o'clock in the morning, you will have a pre-qualification in your hand. And I do. I come right home. I do that. Then I go to bed. But you have to be dedicated. You have to be dedicated to what you do for a living. You have to be passionate about it. Somebody told me one time, if you don't like it, then it's a job. And if it's a job, you're not making a difference. You're just putting in the time. Don't do a job. Do a passion. Both my careers, mortgages, and DJing have given me a passion. Passion for helping people, whether it's getting a home, whether it's getting married, whether it's celebrating a birthday. It's all about passion. It's all about being blessed. And it led me to finding my girlfriend that I have today. 9 years later, she doesn't think it's a blessing, but I look at it as that. My stepdaughter just turned 16 this past week, and she's driving, which is more gray hair now. So stay off the roads in E-Town. But going back to service, I feel that's what I've done most of my life is service, which led me to Rotary thanks to Don. And service is what we do here at Rotary. Service is what I've given my life of in different ways, whether it's helping someone get a mortgage or whether it's celebrating a party. It's service. It's service to our society. It's service to our community. And that's all about being a Rotarian. And I thank you for the opportunity to be that and being here with you today. So thank you.
Come on.
Go ahead.
All right. Did they ever get the people who assaulted you, and why did they assault you? And then my next question is, what's the most requested song?
Yes, they arrested the one gentleman Easter night that year. He was working at the Outback Steakhouse out on Oregon Pike. They never said why they did it, but there was rumors as to why. It's because there was this veteran who had come home from Afghanistan, and he had a lot of issues trying to work back into society. And his girlfriend at the time was whose dad we did the benefit for that passed away. Well, she had a child with someone who was in jail. And while he was in jail, yeah, it's a weird story. While he was in jail, she was dating this Marine who was having issues from Afghanistan. So she knew that my dad's a Vietnam vet. And he really liked what I did for veterans. And she said, he really likes you. Would you just talk to him? So I met him for lunch and I had conversations with him. And then I met her for lunch and said, I don't think you should date him. I think he's a very nice guy. And I think you're bringing a lot of drama into his life. So fast forward to the next benefit that year. She shows up with the guy who was in jail. And I said, there's my lunch buddy. So he automatically thought I was dating his girlfriend while he was in jail. Now, no one ever said that that's the reason why, but many assumed that was the reason why. And he could not do anything, so being on parole, so he had his cousin and his buddy come to the event and make sure that I was taken care of before I left there. So to answer your question, the one that was arrested on Easter Day, they both pled innocent for a year. So you go through all these little trials and all these little court cases, and the DA got involved because it was an aggravated assault, and they also had a cocaine charge. So the DA was involved, and it turned in, the paper puts your name and your picture out there, which was great. If you Google my name, you'll see this event happened. And they were both arrested, and they pled innocent for a year until the one saw what he was going to be getting for jail time and decided that he would rat out his friend. And if he pled guilty and gave all the information, then he would get a reduced sentence. And they asked me if I would be willing to do that, and I just wanted it done with. So I said, I don't care if they get a day, I don't care if they get a week, I don't care if they get a year, 10 years, I just want it over with. Because it's not something fun to go through. And I did get restitution from them. One year I got a check for 99 cents. But yes, they were arrested. And the most popular song requested is probably The Wobble. At weddings now. There's a whole dance to it, Debbie. We'll teach you. And the Cupid Shuffle's another one that gets asked for a lot. The Cupid Shuffle. It's another dance. We'll do that at the installation dinner. We're going to teach you beforehand, and you're going to lead everyone in the Cupid Shuffle and the Wobble. I'm counting on you.
What day of the week is this? Tuesday. Oh, then I'm going to take off work and start drinking early.
Any other questions? Yes.
TJ story about just
Something funny. Okay. So I was working as a subcontractor for a lady called DJ Elliott out of Paradise, PA. She was this little Scottish lady. She would go, Jimmy John, get over here. She'd yell at me. And she started to send me out on my own. So she did a lot in the Gap, Paradise area, and that's where she was predominantly well known. So she sends me out to do this wedding, and it's at the VFW in Gap, right there on the right-hand side going through Paradise. And it was right when you used to carry records with you all the time. And CDs were just coming out. I had one CD, and it was Kenny G. And I would play that for dinner. And it was Kenny G that, I would play that one CD, and it would last the hour for dinner, and it was enough to do. So we get ready to cut the cake after dinner, and the groom shoves the cake in her face. She gets very upset and walks out and is wanting a divorce at her wedding. So she stood outside for 3 hours. I didn't know what to do. Everyone's out there catering to her, and there's people inside. So I just played Kenny G for 3 hours. And it worked. And they came back in and they said, well, what are we going to do now? I said, I'm done. I said, the day's over. I said, I'm going home. Well, we want you to stay longer. Well, you should have thought about that when you shoved the cake in her face. So that's probably the funniest story I ever had.
So after 3 hours, she forgave him?
Yeah, she came back in. Yeah, she came back in after 3 hours. She forgave him, and I don't know if they're still married or not. I ran into.
I guess no, but
That would be interesting.
It's funny because I'll run into people that'll be like, "Hey, you DJ my wedding," and I'm like, "Okay, how's that going? I'm divorced." Alrighty. Yes, Don.
So not only do you spend, well, now it's online.
It's all computerized.
Oh, yeah. But I know you have some musical background. So you are a musician DJ. That's a very different thing. So just a quick about your percussion experience.
Yes, I started as a drummer when I was 5 years old. Grew up in Lancaster City, so my mom tried to keep us out the streets as much as possible and entertained. So we did baseball, basketball, soccer, and we both had to play an instrument. My brother played the violin, I played the drums. So my dad drank a lot because the pounding and that horrible violin sound drove him to drink. No, he didn't drink that much. But I started playing the drums when I was 5, and I did that until I was a sophomore in high school. and that's when I started DJing, is when I gave up the drums. So I've been DJing since 1987, 88.
Does your son go with you also?
He used to. He now helps my buddy, who's a disc jockey, DJ Edge. He's his right-hand man, and I kind of do it just solo. As much as I love my son, he thinks he knows everything at the age he's at, and we butt heads a lot. So when we're working together, so it's better if I do it alone and he helps somebody else. Great questions. Anything else? All right. Thank you so much, everybody.